Hello, it's Peter Castaldi calling for Jerry Schilling.
Hi, Peter. It's Jerry.
How are you?
I'm good. Are you in the middle of the night?
Yeah, 3 a.m. here.
Oh, wow. Well, I give you a lot of credit.
I thank you very much for taking the time to chat with me.
My pleasure.
So, Elvis and Nixon is kind of billed as a comedy, but to me there was some quite kind of fabulous, serious, there was a little bit of seriousness to it. There was, certainly for me, I found in the character Elvis in particular, I didn't find him comic. I found his personality and his character actually very charming.
Well, we started on this, or it was brought to me like 5 years ago, and I wasn't real thrilled with the script. I made the trip to Washington, as we know, with Elvis. I know what the trip meant to him personally, and I never saw it as a comedy. I turned it down. Then I was asked if I would read another script. Cary Elves actually brought it to my home, and he just said, Jerry, he's the actor from Princess Bride, and he was a writer and was going to direct originally, Cary Elves. And he said, we really want to make you happy. And he was trying to make changes, and I don't know, over a couple of years. It was a very most difficult project I have ever worked on. Not for my character, but for Elvis's character. Then I met Michael Shannon. I had dinner with him. He was out here in L.A. I had told him, I'm really tired of this iconic image, making a fool out of Elvis in so many situations, and it's just hard for me to be a part of that. And so anyway, he and I took a trip to Memphis. We did research. We went to where Elvis and I grew up in North Memphis. We went to Lauderdale Courts, the housing project. We ended up at Graceland. He said to the press before the film came out was that Jerry Schilling said he was tired of seeing the foolish image of Elvis. He said, so I took the comedy serious. And he really did. He did not have the look for Elvis, but boy, I think the acting he did really well. I call it an inner Elvis. And I had shared a tape, an audio tape, that I helped do the interview years ago when we were doing a project called Elvis on Tour. And it's a 42-minute tape of Elvis just talking about Hollywood himself, his career. And I shared that with Michael, and he would listen to that between every tape when everybody else was taking a break. I think he did a great acting job. He and I've become good friends, just as Alex Pettifor, who played me, he was a better Jerry Schilling than me. And we had a lovely director, Liza Johnson, who, I guess the bottom line with me finally getting involved in this was she flew out from New York, spent 7 hours here at my home, and never checked into a hotel, flew back to New York. And I knew she was serious about my input. Cassian Elves, the producer, I had a meeting with him earlier, about a year, I guess, or less before we started shooting, to tell him that I wasn't going to be involved. And he said, Jerry, we make good films. You can always take your name off of it or whatever. So I really felt a sincere interest in my input, and I think because of the cast, the director and the producers, nobody was trying to make fun of anyone. They were trying to have fun with. They brought in a couple of, I call script doctors, and I had a long lunch with them. And then they called me all through the night. And I think that's where a lot of the more sensitive scenes got into the script. I know we made a difference. People really liked the film. I met some good friends through the whole process, and I feel good about this film. I just, when I do a project, and I do a few on Elvis, I always want to be able to say, I could sit and watch this with him sitting beside me. I'm not sure about this one, Peter. I mean, it was the most stressful thing I've ever done. Actually, I was having some physical problems because of it, but...
was that because of your closeness to Elvis, your long-time friendship with Elvis? Was that the difficulty?
Yeah, I'm the executive producer. I'm working on the script. I'm working with the actors and the director. And it's my friend's image and likeness. I knew I wasn't going to win the war. The war was that it was a comedy. And I thought it should be a drama. It turned out to be a dramedy. And we won a lot of battles. I think everybody bent over backwards to be sensitive to my concerns. There was a project 20-something years before this, an Elvis Nixon project for Showtime television. And I walked away from that, and they offered me a producership, and I was on the board of Elvis Presley Enterprises at the time. I was the creative affairs director, so I could green light or not. It was early on in our careers trying to get rights for deceased artists. And I walked away from that, and I tell you, I'm glad I walked away, but boy, it was horrible. I mean, it was awful. So I think what was important this time is basically the representatives of the family. When I told them I was backing away, and this was after a few scripts and whatever, they basically said, Jerry, we would feel better. We're not going to be involved, but we would feel better if you were. That really convinced me. I'm glad I was involved. It's a good film, and people are really enjoying it. I mean, people I thought would hate it are saying, man, it was good, Jerry.
Are you confident, Jerry, that it's a better film because of your insistence?
Well, I certainly was a big part of that, but the terrific acting of Kevin Spacey and Michael Shannon, Alex Pettifer, and Johnny Knoxville, and Colin Hanks, and the whole crew and everything. I mean, it was certainly a combined effort with everybody. I think story point wise, we certainly added a lot. And, this is something that a director is really in charge. Liza was very comfortable. Well, at first, when she came out here, at the end of the meeting, I said, how do you feel about me being on the set? And she said, I have mixed emotions. And I thought that was a very honest answer. And I said, Liza, you're the director. Whatever decision you make on that, I totally support. The next week she was back in New York, and she called me and said, I think you'll be a real asset on the set. And yeah, I was very, very involved in this. And I had in my contract that I could take my name off of it. And at a point, I was so much into it, it would have made sense anyway. I was proud to have my name on it.
It sounds to me, the way you're talking about this kind of development of the script over a period of time and meeting the key creatives involved both in front of and behind the camera, that what was going on was a desire for honesty being loaded on top of what was already a project with quite a lot of integrity.
Yes, Cashy and Elves and Holly and Weismer and all of them, I mean, they've had quite a track record of good films from, Oscar-nominated films, The Butler, Dallas Buyers Club. I think Cashin has done more independent films than any producer. If you look him up, he's the king of independent films. Everybody, whatever they told me or I asked, they were honest with me, even if we disagreed. Even if Michael Shannon and I disagreed on if a scene was over the top, he would really have a great point as an actor, and I would have a personal point from the human side from Elvis. I think with my relationship with Elvis, God, started 62 years ago, I thought also, so what, do I just create or do the easy projects? Maybe I should tackle this one, knowing that I would never be totally satisfied with it. But the fact that it came so far, I have all 7 scripts, to see the change in the attitude of the scripts. And there's scenes in there that I think are very personal, tell a lot about Elvis, and certainly a lot about mine and his relationship. There were a lot of things like that I was proud to see on screen, to be honest, But it was also, Peter, just about like writing yourself out of history, and I was proud of that. I was the only person, I wasn't working for Elvis at the time, that when this important trip, probably the most in his life, he trusted me and didn't want anybody else to know where he was. Well, I'm very proud of that part of the history. I'm proud that I had a relationship and have a relationship with Bud Eagle Crow, who was on the staff of Nixon. And I've always been very politically interested. I was a political science minor in college. And, a lot of things went into this that were parts of my life over the years.
It's a pretty extraordinary story. I mean, I had never heard it until I heard the title of the film, Elvis and Nixon, and I did a bit of research because I thought it might have been a fiction, and it turns out to be a fact. The journey is extraordinary, and you were on that journey, as you just said. Is it emotional for you to kind of go back and relive such an important part of Elvis's life like this?
Well, I think more closer to after his passing away, things were very painful. I couldn't even listen to his music. I didn't go back to Memphis. I didn't, I just went on with my career managing, the Beach Boys and Jerry Lee Lewis. But later on, and you realize that thanks to Elvis, I am part of history, and you want to get history as accurate as possible. I ended my book by saying, the real true story is always the best story. So by the time working on this on a daily basis, it wasn't painful. Sometimes it was frustrating, but no, it was, if I thought something made Elvis look ridiculous, which there were some things in the original script that did, then that could be painful. And but we didn't end up in this movie with any of those cheap shots on Elvis or Nixon.
So you were there on this trip. What was it like?
Well, I didn't want to go on the trip. I had worked very hard as an apprentice film editor at a TV station, ABC, to get into feature film editing. And it took me a year, and I carried film cases and scraped labels off of syndicated shows. And I finally got to Paramount, and I was just new there. And it was Sunday night that Elvis said, I want you to go to Washington with me. And I had to be at work Monday morning. And I said I couldn't. And, he said, why not? And I said, Elvis, I have to be at work in the morning. He said, well, I'll send you back in a Lear jet. And I knew part of his leaving Memphis and everything was also over his financial spending, and he was getting complaints and, from people who cared. And he had a problem while he was changing planes to come out to meet me. The fact that he was carrying 3 guns on a plane, and a steward told him, you can't have the guns in the plane. And Elvis got very upset and said, I have credentials, walked off the plane. And you believe it or not, in real life, the pilot came after him and said, it's okay, Elvis, you can bring your guns. So I'm thinking all of this, I'm thinking nobody in the world knows where he is. He has never traveled by himself in his life. And I made a deal with him. I wasn't going to let him out there by himself. Not that he can't take care of himself, but he could also, like I said, have problems out there. So I said, if I can call Graceland, let Priscilla and your father know you're not kidding, and if I could get Sonny or Red, security guys, to meet us up there where I can get back if I haven't lost my job, I'll go with you. And we took an all-nighter to Washington.
And ended up in the Oval Office.
Yeah, we ended up there, to my surprise. On the plane, he met a California senator, and that's when he started writing the letter to the president. I don't know what the conversation between Senator Murphy and Elvis was, because the senator was in coach, and Elvis and I was first class, and when he went back there, I don't know what the conversation. But I would have to think that Senator Murphy must have said something about, oh, you should just go to the president. I'd been up 2 days now, because when Elvis came into Los Angeles and went to sleep, well, I'm the only person that knows where he is. I couldn't go to sleep. We had dropped the letter off at the White House at the Northwest Wing Guard Gate, I think is what it's called. And so he said, Jerry, you stay here and wait for the call from the White House. And I didn't want to hurt his feelings and say, we're not going to get a call from the White House. And he was gone about 30 minutes for the Findlater meeting, and I get a call from Bud Eagle Crow, who didn't know if this was a joke or whatever, because the White House staff, they play jokes on each other from time to time. And he said that the president had read Mr. Presley's letter and would like to meet him in 30 minutes.
Was it exciting?
Yeah. It was fascinating for me, as I was a history major and a political science minor. I was going to be a school teacher and a football coach. I kept up with the politics pretty good, and the main exciting thing to me was Elvis went in before, and then they said it was a Secret Service situation that myself and Sonny couldn't go in. And we said, well, Elvis is pretty hard to say no to. And about that time, the phone rang, and the president wants to meet Mr. Presley's friends. And so we got there. Elvis opens the door. And, I don't know, it's halfway between being at the White House and being at Graceland. But I saw way down at the end, the president was sitting at his desk. And the Oval Room, you don't get this in pictures, but I realized it was oval, and it was just, I saw this history. And Elvis thought I was scared. He was like, oh man, come on. He kind of pushed me in laughing. And I was a little, but it was just the awe of that. That's the moment I remember.
And just finally, Jerry, it might be a hard question to answer, but I have to ask it. What was Elvis like?
Well, Jesus, he was like a lot of things, but just simply put, he was a great guy, a great friend, who much more intelligent intelligence than history knows. He was way ahead of his time. He was not just a good old boy. He was James Dean, too. He had an edge. He had a temper. But he chose to control it and to be a nice guy. And that made me love him even that much more. Very interesting to be around, to stay up all night and have conversations. Most interesting person I've ever been around. And, you know, because of my career and everything, I've been around some really great, interesting people. But Elvis was, he was just unique in a way that is hard to describe unless you knew him.
Thanks, Jerry.
My pleasure. I enjoy speaking with you, Peter, and I hope the people in Australia really enjoy this film. I've had the opportunity to do 3 tours in Australia. One was with Billy Joel way back. We were the first rock group to play the Sydney Opera House, and 2 with the Beach Boys. So I have very fondness for Australia, and I think that everybody will enjoy the film.
I'm sure they will. Thanks for your time, Jerry, and have a great day.
You too, man. Thank you, Peter.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye.